past 10 years in the Juggalo world have been basically pinning both ICP and Twiztid releases against each other, picking them both apart, seeing who took what, and all this other nonsense. Whether they say ICP hasn't put out a good album since the first deck ended in 2004, or promising album after album after album after album after album that will never be released, or saying Twiztid stole ideas, like people saying, oh, now the writers are just no more, they stole that idea and like revamped it on their roster, and them performing Dark Lotus songs live, which,
newsflash,
Twiztid, Blaze, and ABK are 2/3 of all the members. Twiztid is 2 people, and then Blaze and ABK. And then counting ICP would be 6 members kind of throughout the whole period. So you have 3 people officially on the label, and 1 not, but with heavy ties, performing their songs live. That's the best you're gonna get, so personally I'd appreciate it. Just have fun with it. Stop being, like, negative about it. But the 2 projects I've seen people stirring up already and starting to kind of bounce them off each other is the new release with Twiztid, Blaze, and DJ Godzilla album called Odyssey. Now, this is not a official group as of right now. It is just a collab album. And then they're pinning that against the newest supergroup on Psychopathic, which is Violent J, Esham, and Ouija Macc, 3-Headed Monster. And like I said before, Odyssey is not a group, it's a collaboration album, versus 3HM being a group. People are still saying this new project, I'm just going to call it the Twiztid project to make it easier for people, they're calling it Diet 3-Headed Monster. Or, in normal people terms, for people who don't understand what the hell that means, it means like a ripoff, like when people say it's a Wish.com version, a bootleg, whatever you want to call it. Kind of like they're calling their version of them performing Dark Lotus songs live, and Rider songs live, they're calling them Diet Lotus and Diet Riders. There's a moth.
ooh,
But today I'm going to be pinning them against each other, kind of like I did in 2022, when Twiztid versus ICP's Hungry Like the Wolf songs that they both did. I did a thing pinning them against each other. For this, I'm going to be comparing Odyssey, the debut from that collaboration project, to the debut 3-Headed Monster album, Obliteration, to make it more fair, as 3-Headed Monster has just released a new album, and I've not had a time to fully listen to it yet, to give my honest review on it. First up, the sound quality of each. For both albums, I compared them 3 different ways that I will list here. My car radio, which is a Boss 609 UAB, with the bass at between 3 and 4, mid is at 4 to 5, and treble is at 6. I don't like it too bass heavy, but it still gives it enough of a kick. My studio headphones, which are Audio-Technica ATH M40X's, they're my studio grade ones that I've used since 2019, and they sound amazing still. And I'm also going to test it by my iPad speaker, just so that way it is a fair comparison, going from the best to the least best, so that way some people are like,
oh, you didn't listen to it on this or that.
So that way it's the lowest quality to the highest quality, to give everyone a fair chance. I am not taking sides. There are no sides taking. These are my honest opinions. For 3-Headed Monster, I'm going to start off with this. The listening experience, it sounded completely different over each individual medium, basically, that I listened to it on. And unfortunately, that did not help it. It was not in a good way. I went through the car speaker on full and half volume just to see what would go on. The high end sounded really sharp. It literally made me like wince. I was like kind of like tightening up because it was hurting my ears. But then also, on times on songs like Crushin', the bass and the low end take up so much of anything else happening that whatever vocals, other instruments, whatever you want to say, they get drowned out, and it just gets this muddy feeling over it. And for people saying the bass is too high, I did test 2 Bone songs. Like, he has a lot of 808s in his song, it seems like, and it's a lot more of a low tone on it. So I tested HDMI and White Boy Rick, as his vocals are very low to begin with, and they're reverbed a lot. On both of those songs, same exact way. The bass stayed where it needed to be, even though it was kicking, and you could hear the vocals fine. You could hear the melody fine. So I just wanted to be sure it wasn't a radio problem, and it was just the sound problem, it seems like. And on the iPad, it was just what you would expect from an iPad speaker. Not really the best thing right there, but it was still clipping. On some songs, it was clipping throughout the songs. If you don't know what that means, it's when, like, it's going too high in the levels, and, like, kind of like when, like, your earbuds start to rattle almost. Something like that. It's clipping, it's too high, it's too hot if you're an audio producer, and you've used that to use volume. And for the headphones, the low end did take a break somehow, but the high end, it just started piercing through everything. And even on high and half, it was like, what is going on here? And unfortunately, it made it a difficult listen. But yet for Odyssey, it is the complete opposite. It was pleasant across every listening experience, and overall, the audio for the most part had a warm tone over it and felt full due to it kind of balancing the low end and the high end correctly. Now, obviously, they relied on the high end more if you've listened to it, and there are times in some songs where, say, the low end or the high end could be kind of battling each other, trying to take over, like a King of the Hill situation. I could put the headphones in the car on full blast, nothing clipped in the speakers at all, and it was not insanely distorted, and it really didn't hurt my ears as much. While I just listed the listening experience, I'm going to go into the mixing of it while I'm on this topic of the sound of it, just to kind of keep it flowing. Now for Odyssey, the mixing is done really well. I will say that 100% with my chest. It is done really good. Some things I changed personally just as my little brain wanting to tweak every little thing. And one thing that's really important for me when I listen to songs is the vocals mixing with the instrumental well, especially the drums and the bass. And they nailed it. It was nice. There are some parts where the vocals would take place over the instruments, but for the most part, with the different styles, because Madrox, I would say, has more of a high end in his vocals if you listen to him. And then you have Blaze, who is kind of the middle. His can kind of go either way. And then Monoxide, I would say, takes more of the low end. And somehow they were able to blend all of them together when they were on the songs, and just kind of work it out and make it a good listening experience. And with that, I was able to pretty much examine all the instruments and the vocals separately, even with each track having a different kind of style put in it. Like one had horns, one had guitar, etc. They all somehow were able to manage to blend each song together really well, and I think that has a big part to do with whoever was mixing it. And honestly, the drums, I feel like the drums kind of consistently went for each one really well. For Three-Headed Monster, though, very weird how this goes together. And for the most part, it seems like a bunch of songs just thrown together for this tour that they were on, and they're like, hey, let's just do this. It would have been a lot better, honestly, if they cut half the tracks and released it as an EP. And I feel like people would be more attracted to it. And I'll get more into that on the next topic. For the mixing part, surprisingly, Ouija's vocals are the one thing I like throughout the whole project. Something with how his vocals are always mixed into it is insanely good, and it can fit throughout almost every song. Some of them kind of stands out more than others, like it kind of like it doesn't fit, but it works. Like you can make it work pretty much. And probably my favorite that you can feel that like mixed really well is on the solo track Juggalos for Jesus, Crushin' and Biggest. Now for some reason, Violent J's vocals as of recently, they always seem like they're either mixed too high or they're just a bit louder than everyone else's. I'm just like, it throws me off. And it feels like they just take over the whole song as soon as they're in the room pretty much. And it just throws me for like a Violent J jump scare pretty much. And for Esham, this might be because I'm not a super big Esham fan and I don't know his solo work 100% well, but it doesn't seem as good of quality as the rest of them mixed in together. Whether that be just it's present and it's not taking over, or in songs like Crushin', it just completely is gone. Like I said, the songs being thrown together, there really wasn't a formal flowing feel to it like Odyssey did for me. It felt like it jumped too hard to each song. But like I said, very confusing listening to it with how it jumps styles. Like you go from, I'm just going to use the first two tracks because it's easier for me to explain it that way. Fire Breathing deals with more horns. It has like the violins. It sounds like an old monster movie pretty much, like an old orchestra. The drums are very slow paced. And then you have Crushin', which is 808s, metal guitar, and like the trap drums or whatever, like they're faster paced tempo. And it's just like, what happened between each song? And for expectations, they both let me down just as equally somehow. Look at that, I'm talking bad on Odyssey. They advertise it, both of them, Odyssey and Three-Headed Monsters Obliteration. They label them as group projects, when most of each album was solo stuff. For Odyssey, Madrox is the only person to feature on every track. Obviously, you'll have DJ Godzilla. I think he's the instrumental person, so that's a given. But Monoxide is only on 2 tracks somehow, and Blaze is only on 1, even though it's advertised as a Twiztid, Blaze being on each song together as a whole collaboration project, making it pretty much a Madrox solo EP with features. Like, it didn't make the songs bad, but it kind of just soured the experience. I'm like, wait a minute, where's Mono in this? Where's Blaze? I was supposed to get a whole album of all these 3 bastards kicking it. And nope, it is the Madrox solo EP featuring. And somehow for Three-Headed Monster, they set the bar lower. They disappointed me even more. With out of the original 12 tracks, if you count 13 with the bonus remix of Fire Breathing, there is only 4 tracks where all of them are on together, with 6 of them being solo tracks, with 2 being the Esham, 2 being Violent J, and 2 being Ouija. And the solo tracks really take me out of the feeling of it being a full album. Like, what the hell? Like, I go to sit down and listen, and I'm like, oh, let me hear all 3 together. Wait a minute, why is Violent J doing Possum Kingdom? Now, for these kind of weird groups that do solo stuff on their albums, my personal one that I think is a good one to example as is City Morgue. They're the only group I know who can throw solo songs on a album and they match and work well together because it's all kind of the same style. They all feel like they work well together. Now this one, for Obliteration, it was just a big flop, and it would have been probably a lot more successful in my opinion if it was released as a 5 to 6 track EP. Now this one's gonna be a weird one. This is the casing, the physical copy of the CD, and the pricing. This is what I'm going to go off of because this really ticked me off. Odyssey is in a normal jewel case, which if you do not know what a jewel case is, it is this. It is just a normal CD case. The pre-order was $12, $11.99, and now it's $14. But it's not the worst, but it is an EP. It's only 7 tracks. So if you buy it, I'd recommend buying a few CDs with it, so it's worth it in shipping, because shipping is about $4 to $5, so you're really gonna pay close to that 20 mark. Get a couple CDs in there, wait till it's on sale. Hi, Mr. Moth, you're back again. Now, Three-Headed Monsters Obliteration comes in a DVD case, so already making it impractical for your CD collection, for your CD wall, and also, oh, it just cost a measly $30 damn. I will say, if it was 15, I might have picked it up. But for $30, an album on a CD that's made to look like a damn DVD, that's ripoff. That's a cash grab. That's bullshit at the end of the day for me. And that just seems like, oh, we're just doing it just because of the money. Fuck you. And if you count in the shipping, I think it was on the Vault for a little bit of time. The Vault is $10 shipping almost. So you're paying close to $40 for basically 4 tracks of group stuff and 6 solo tracks. It's all just insane prices, and it feels like it's more just to rip off the fan base versus giving them something worthwhile. Now for a special segment I'm going to call, Does It Have Ear Appeal? Now, what I mean by this, does it have the chance to be played normally or on repeat? Kind of like how you say in a car or piece of art is like eye appeal. It's like it stands out, it's worth checking out pretty much. Ear appeal is the same way. Now for Odyssey, I'd say 7 out of 10, which is a C. It's not a bad C. With it being fairly short, you can play it a couple times on the way to work or whatever, and not really get tired of it. But at the same time, I do not think this will be in my constant loop a year from now. It'll be one maybe I pick up from time to time, but that's about it. Obliteration, on the other hand, I'm at a 2 out of 10. While Fire Breathing is a song I'll probably have a check on every now and then, as it's probably my favorite song from the project, I could give 2 cares less about the rest of the album, pretty much. Did one solid listen when it came out. Not a fan of it. It was a very tough listen, just not for me. And then did the 3 listens for this videos. I have no interest to revisit it again at all. Haven't since the release of it, and will not after this. And on the topic, I saw people saying, oh, Twiztid stole the Godzilla monster idea from Three-Headed Monster. Question is, did they steal it? I do not think so. I would be like the longest damn shot you could take with it. Because Three-Headed Monster, it was like, oh, they had the tour, and then lo that like a week and a half or 2 weeks after that, they're like, oh, we have an album coming out in a couple days. So it just really didn't seem like people think Twiztid's gonna be like, oh, look,
They did the monster stuff. Let's steal it.
what I think it's gonna end up being is just a coincidence. Especially since it's both giant lizard monsters. The Three-Headed Monster is a different version of like a Japanese monster, I think, than Godzilla is. I'm not involved with the Godzilla talk. There's someone on TikTok, she talks about Godzilla stuff all the time, so she could probably give you a better explanation of it. But really, on Odyssey, the guy's called DJ Godzilla. It's in his name, and like I said, they look vastly different to each other. On the verdict of who's better, let's see, it's Odyssey. Far better project than Three-Headed Monster's Obliteration. And some people might say I'm a Twizzler for it, or a super fan, if you're not in that weird lingo. Unfortunately, I've been exposed too much to it, but I'm not. I'm looking at both sides of these with a fair and open opinion, just putting which one is good and which one's bad together. And I have like a vast taste of music that I'm able to come at this through just blind eyes and look at it as, don't give a damn about who's on it. Is the music good? That's like, is it worth it? And I come at it basically as non-biased. So that'll do it for today. Let me know down in the comments, what is your opinion on these albums? What is your favorite track from it? What is your favorite member from them? I don't give a damn. Tell me everything down in the comments. And if you like these types of videos, please let me know down in the comments as well. And just liking, sharing, subscribing, doing whatever you want. I do not care. And I will see you in the next one.